She's Lauren.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Peter.
Oh. I'm Shrek.
This is Spaces. This episode is totally ordinary.
I'm Sadia.
I'm Lauren.
I am Ian.
I am Peter.
He's
You're
definitely
Leo.
not Peter.
I am.
This is Mom. Hey guys, welcome to Spaces. If you haven't noticed, actually if you're listening you wouldn't have noticed this. If you're listening, we're going to tell you though. If you're watching, you already noticed though. We got Lauren and Leo in the same podcast. Lauren's back!
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Now, who we're missing, of course, is our dear Peter.
The Rock.
El Pastor, The Rock, yes. We can't wait to have him back. I bet you do too. But for now, the kids are at the table, and we're going to have a good time.
The kitty table.
That's
We're
right.
all adults.
Oh.
I don't know about y'all, but we're sitting at the kiddie table with my mac and cheese and little chicken nuggets. You know?
The dinosaur-shaped
little
ones.
nugs.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
That's what this
some
podcast
nuggets
is.
with them.
The dogs.
That's exactly
The
what this
dinosaur
podcast
nuts.
is. Oh my goodness. Making puns over here. So, tonight though, we're talking about the small things. Not small things like chicken nuggets, but the small things of life, the ordinary.
The little nugs.
The little,
The little nugs,
Oh
the
my
mini
goodness. So to kind of explain, we're having a conversation on this particular occasion. It was Lauren, Leo, and I. We're kind of having this conversation and about what we were going to talk about today. And one of the things that came up was the small things. Lauren was pointing out. Lauren, I don't know if you mind kind of taking us through a little bit of kind of what triggered this idea of the small things for you.
Yeah, the small things. It was 2 days ago. I was working at my shift at Starbucks. Do I tell the story now or should
Go
I tell
for
it? Okay, so this is what happened. So, if you know me, I don't like to drink water, you know. I don't like water. So I was very dehydrated and, you know, I wasn't myself. So I was working and I was doing the dishes and I don't know where I felt like dizzy. So I started feeling a little faint and then I don't know where I blacked out full on the ground. And then so
You literally fainted.
I fainted, like out of the movies. You know, it was one of those scenes where you can see life and it's just closing in, like that Ken Burns kind of thing, you know? So that's what happened. Everything faded to black.
And there wasn't like a sailor to catch you or anything. It was just you fainted.
You fell on the floor?
I did. Yeah, I fell on the floor, but...
Is there security footage of this or?
Oh, I hope the other day she described how she fell on the floor, and I just want to say, you're beautiful. Thanks.
But she did not fall on the floor beautifully.
Oh, okay. Well, if you know Starbucks, it's like a very busy hustle bustle kind of deal. So everybody was busy taking care of things that needed to get done, and so nobody kind of noticed. So I was just kind of there fainting by myself. It's fine, but it's crazy thing is because one of the people that actually works there was a shift manager, and I don't really connect with this person on a one-on-one kind of like basis, you know. So it's like the one person that you would never expect to be there for you when you most need it, which is crazy because I'm close friends with everybody but that person, which amazes me. And then so thankfully, that person came to my rescue. They noticed something was wrong. Obviously, they noticed I was on the floor, but it was okay. So they helped me up, and then they made me help me get to the chair, and they started taking care of me. And you know, like I said, Starbucks is crazy. So it was during the times when everything was just really
everything
bad.
was happening, and they took the time.
When they needed to be there, they actually took the time to take care of me, which I saw God in that moment because even though everything was going chaotic, they actually felt the need to take care of me when they didn't need to.
Yeah.
You know,
Weren't they
so
off the clock? They were off
the clock too.
Yeah, they weren't getting paid at
Exactly. So I was very thankful in that moment.
So that was like a small thing that had a disproportionate impact on you. Someone taking the time to take care of you when you needed it.
Right.
And it was a person that you don't connect with.
Right.
So it's that's so surprising, you know?
Mm-hmm. I saw more of their character and how they really were based on the small actions that they took to take care of me. And I mean, something bad could have happened if they weren't there to help me out. So
I praise God in that moment because it would have been really bad if they weren't there.
I mean, I imagine you're like on the floor and then people are just like
Yeah.
walking over
It's
you
like,
like,
Lauren's just taking a
oh, like
nap.
she,
Taking
yeah,
a
she's
nap.
just taking it down. Let's just
She's
leave
fine.
her there.
Yeah, so that's what happened.
You know, that's actually a really good story to kind of describe what we're talking about today, which I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today. Right up front. You know, usually we kind of save it, but right up front. We usually say it up front, but very explicitly, seeing our everyday lives as meaningless leads to a life of frustration. But like we saw in kind of Lauren's story, our everyday life and choices are the key to experiencing the life that Jesus offers to each one of us. And put another way, just in case you're coming from a place of, let's say you're not coming from a place of faith, I think this is still really relevant. Our everyday life and choices are the key to experiencing the life that you want to live, becoming the type of person that you want to be on the inside. And so that story kind of describes it. But as you were sharing that, going back to our conversation that we were having, that started kind of getting some wheels turning for me. Because I heard this thing recently from, you guys must get tired, but I talk about her all the time. I love Brene Brown. She's a researcher, an author. I love her books. She's like totally changed my life. Brene, if you ever listen, I love you.
Shout out
Seriously.
Brene.
Oh my goodness. But one thing that I heard from her this week was that we as a culture have learned to discount the ordinary. We've learned to say that if something is normal or ordinary, it's meaningless. And we see that in our culture. There's so much emphasis on the dramatic, so much emphasis on like something special. I'm sure you guys experience that. Like, I think it goes into our individual lives where we feel like, I know in my life, especially, I think especially in high school, like there's just a sense that every moment has to be exciting. Every moment
Yes.
has to be a Graham moment. Like every moment I have to like capture in some way. Like seriously, what?
A gram.
A Graham moment.
A Graham
Graham
moment.
cracker?
A
A gram?
Grammy.
You mean a gram?
No, like Instagram.
A gram.
Like,
Oh, okay.
It's got to get on the
That
gram.
changes
I was
it.
thinking
Okay,
that
a
changes that
a Grammy
sentence to what I
moment.
was thinking.
No.
What you were trying
Yeah.
to say.
Every moment has to
I'm
be an
glad we
Instagram
clarified
moment.
that.
There you go. An
That
IG
makes a lot
moment.
more sense,
Yes.
though. Yeah.
I was like, Lauren and I looked at each other like,
Oh my goodness. And I really felt that pressure though to like if something wasn't like going super well, I always felt that pressure of like I have to, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to pull up my phone. Maybe I can put my like phone here and I can like show that I'm doing something cool or that I'm like drinking my cup of coffee or like I don't know, like or and then whenever I started like getting more involved in church and stuff, it's like, oh, I'm gonna post this verse, I'm gonna like I'm gonna build my brand and constant like pressure, like even when I was with my family or I was with friends, I was thinking about what I was gonna do on Instagram, constantly. So there's a sense. And I really related with what Brene Brown was saying, that the ordinary is just like, it seems meaningless, and something else that I was thinking about was when we think about the things that could change our lives, it's like, what could change my life? And I know for me, I think about like, maybe if I go to like a big event like Hillsong Conference, or for me, I want to go to Mosaic Conference. Shout out Mosaic LA. They're doing great stuff out there. But or these different like big events, or maybe I think for some of us, like maybe if I finally like got that girlfriend or I got that guy, whatever, like maybe then like we think about those dramatic things, our lives would change. Something that I've been experiencing though, and something that I've been reading, is that it's actually the ordinary things that change our lives. It's not those big dramatic moments. And let's think about that, because if we think about it, like 90, and you guys feel free to cut it in any moment, but like as I was reflecting, like 95% like of our lives, and that's like not even like backed by science or something, but if we just think about if I think about my own experience, like probably more than 95% of my life is just like what I would consider like ordinary. Waking up, hanging out with my family, eating breakfast, going to class, like or very ordinary things that don't seem very remarkable. And as I think back, I think so many of the times I was living, and I have lived, and if I'm not careful, I do live, those places in discontented with what's in the ordinary, because I'm always looking forward to, the weekend, or I'm looking forward to, that holiday. Or I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm always looking forward to Sunday to watch the Cowboys during the fall. But essentially trading away the moment that I have, or not even seeing the point is not seeing the value in it. And were you gonna say something, Lauren?
Well, like you said something about spending time with your family, how everything is kind of like a set in stone routine, and then it's kind of amazing when something changes that routine. You said something in Bible study the other day on Tuesday about how that one week you were very stressed out on a Friday or something. It was like your cleaning day, and that's like routine, right?
Sure.
And then that one small thing that your family did for you, they're like, oh no, here, we'll take care of the house tasks for you so that you can focus on this thing. And like that kind of impacted your week, you know what I mean? So it was like the small things. Even though it was routine, it still had an impact on you, that small change helped you along the way.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was super sweet of my family. I was preparing for something, and it was a big deal to me, and they took that time to clean. Just for a little context, they cleaned for me. I live at home. My mom's great. Mom, if you watch this, love you.
Shout out Ian's mom.
No, you didn't. Oh my god, that's hilarious. I think though this whole thing with the ordinary as well, if we're gonna take it into the context of, since we're actually we're at Canyon Creek Project, if you don't know where we record, I think the church can fall into this as well, which is thinking that, and we've talked about this a few times, and feel free to comment on this, but we often feel like, if you notice, what is the thing that seems to matter to most churches? What's that thing that we promote, that we put so much work in? And maybe if you haven't been a part of a church, just to give you some background, like having grown up in the church and having grown up in like music and stuff, I've been part of like putting on programs and stuff like that for a long time. And I know for me, what I learned was that what was most important was what happened for us Saturday mornings. What was most important was, did I perform? And if I performed well, I felt great. If I did my riffs well, if I, did what I needed to do on stage, if I smiled enough, if I was eloquent enough when I started speaking more, I always judged myself or how successful our church was based on how our product was, how 2 hours was. But something I've been challenged with recently is that whenever we think about the values of Jesus, so thinking about and focusing on what happens for 2 hours makes a lot of sense if you're making it and basing it off show business. If we're having the values of American success, right? Because it's all about performance, it's all about the exterior, it's all about, looking good.
Yeah.
But what are the values of Jesus? And I think the values of Jesus are always people. And so what happens every other hour of the week? What happens in between? And I found myself living in a pattern of, most people I didn't see like after church for the entire week. Most people I wasn't keeping up with their lives. I was so busy trying to, act perfectly on a Saturday morning so that I could perform for them, that I didn't take time to organize times to hang out or organize times to be there for them. And so we can miss the beauty of the ordinary, and we can, and it only leads to frustration. Does that make sense?
That's
or
true.
do you guys
Yeah.
have any comments or anything that comes to mind?
I definitely agree with that. I feel like a lot of the time whenever I feel like in my life it's pretty stagnant, or I feel like it's just my everyday routine, like I get pretty mad because I'm like, I want something to happen. It's like you keep poking it with the stick. You're like, do something, and nothing's happening. Like it's just like
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you
Just
keep
thought of
poking
a
your
bear.
life. Yeah, I just thought of a bear. Like my life is a bear, and I'm just like, do something. Like you're just sitting there.
Do a flip.
Do a kick flip.
Do the roar. Do the roar.
Wow.
Shout out Shrek. we're gonna
Sponsor
cut
us.
that.
Full of shout outs today.
But no, and I do agree with that. And kind of going back with that Instagram where everything feels like it has to be a grand moment. Like, not even just in high school I went through that. I still go through that today.
Yeah.
Like, I always try to post, you know, the best thing, the thing that makes me look coolest, or the thing that makes me look healthiest, or just you want to post, like, the best side of yourself. And it's like, it can be a good thing, but at the same time, it can be, like, you know, it can be a bad thing.
Well, what is good in it, and what's the dark side of it? Like, what's the difficult side of it?
I feel like the good side of it could be just letting your friends and family know that you're okay, or just using it as like a tool to kind of spread positivity or to spread awareness of things that you care about. I feel like the negative parts is that you start kind of creating this fake sense of self. Like, you start creating a fake persona that you kind of want to show off to people, and that's not really who you are. Well, it is kind of who you are, but it's not.
It's only a part.
It's only a part of who you are.
In other words, trying to leave out every part of you that's ordinary. In other words, every part of you that's like the real.
That's just the everyday poking it with a stick.
Dude, that's deep. Yeah.
Dang.
You said something about like church, and I see like church as like this big thing. You know, it's such an iconic, not just an iconic, but like a very important part of life, I guess, if you do have religion. So it's like, you know, it's important. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, when I first came to Canyon Creek, I thought like, oh, this is a new church plant, you know. I bet like they're gonna be counting, or like the success of a church is gonna be based off how many people have memberships here, how many people get baptized, how many people can you bring to church, you know. Like, that's just how I used to think how you would calculate a church's progress, or like you know. And I was thinking, like, there is true beauty in the ordinary, you know, when you actually, it's like, I'm gonna use this analogy, but like,
bring it.
It's like when you have like a really pretty girl, you know, and like you have like a girlfriend or like a guy, or like, no, we're gonna use a girl this time, sorry. Anyway, so a girl, and then you take them out, and then you get to know them, but like when they remove their makeup, what happens? You know, then you find, like, you know how guys say, I wish you wore like less makeup, I wanna know the real you. It's like, it's kind of like taking off someone's makeup, guy or girl, it doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? So like there's true beauty in natural like essence, I guess. So
yeah, that's
a
good quote. Tweet that.
But yeah, like you were saying, you feel like so much pressure on having to be this person or this leader, like your reputation, you know. Like, you guys are in the praise team and everything, and I know how much stressful, or how
You
stressful.
guys.
You're in it too.
Us guys.
I mean,
and gals.
I know how stressful
All
it
of
can
us.
be. I know how it can be stressful to put up this production that will really pull people in and show the love of Christ, you know. But then sometimes we forget, like, what's like the whole purpose of it, you know. And then in my experience in Canyon Creek, when I came to like the church plan and everything, I was like, oh, this is such a great production. And then like when not production, good service. And I was over time, when I started to get to know you guys, I'm like, wow, I actually know them. I don't see you guys as just Ian from the praise team, Sadia from the praise team, Leo from the like whatever team. Okay, but you know what I'm saying? Like the more I got I'm drooling. The more I got to know you guys on an ordinary, more personal level, I got to see you guys as for who you guys truly are, not what you guys put out there, you know what I mean?
Ooh.
So there's beauty in natural essence.
You know what? I had you go first.
Okay.
I'll remember.
I wanted to okay, cuz you mentioned something, which is there's beauty in the ordinary. And that, now that I'm thinking about it, like, that's true, because you kind of like, you want something, like what I was saying about poking with the stick, you want something to happen, but I don't really take in count those little moments where you feel like they're not important, but they might be important to someone else. Right. Or they might be impactful to someone else.
The little things.
Yeah, the little things. It's those little tiny things.
I thought you had a story, man. I was just trying to get you to tell a story.
Oh, I do have a story, but...
Bring it, bro.
Oh, okay.
Bring
I wanted to use it for
Save it for
later.
Yeah.
But
Save the best for last.
Save the best for last.
All right, good tune. With what you said, though, that's actually really true, because I had a totally different view of you before I got to know you. you know,
Tell us
Lauren
what
from
that
the-
Asian girl.
well,
Tell
she's
us what
Lauren
this
from the-
was.
so I always knew Lauren from just like you playing guitar. Lauren's a great guitarist, and she's an amazing musician.
Thank you.
Very talented.
And
yes.
And that's the only role that I knew her. And something about Lauren, though, is that whenever she has a guitar, she gets really quiet. And she doesn't talk very much because she
That's so funny, 'cause
is
it's so
focusing on her music. And you don't mess with Lauren, all right? Whenever she's focusing on her music, okay?
Are you talking to the mic?
Yeah.
I know, I was doing that again.
Don't mess with
Lauren,
Lauren,
at you
Mike.
again. Don't mess with Lauren. But I called Lauren when it's like, hey, Lauren, you know, essentially like, what do you think about doing a podcast? And we had this conversation, and she was just sharing with, and you were just sharing with me like your heart.
I remember that.
And I was like, what? And then I started to get to know you more, just hanging out. I'm like, who is this? You're.
Here's Lauren.
She's crazy.
I didn't know, like, you were so cool, and like, I don't know, there is something different whenever, like, you know, we've talked on this show about dehumanizing, but whenever we humanize people, and whenever we actually get to know them, it's like, oh, it's so
We're
good.
Ordinary humans.
Yes, and notice it took a long time before I knew you for like over
It's
a
been-
year
Yeah.
before I got to that point. And it took.
Same for me.
Yeah.
You too. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, one thing that's interesting about this conversation with the ordinary is that it doesn't just have to do with living like a happier life. You know, like, I think there's a lot to it, and I think we're going to talk more about it. But I think there definitely is something spiritual about this. I've been, as you guys know, I've been doing some research about really, like, what does it mean to live the life that Jesus calls us into? What does it mean to not just live and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to live forever and have like eternal length of life, but in the words of Dallas Willard, to have the eternal kind of life, an eternal quality of life. Like, what does that look like in my life? And I've been trying to look and trying, you know, that's been on the back of my heart, because it's like, kind of like Willard Church, like, if Jesus is who he says he is, like, shouldn't that have something to do with our real life?
For sure.
Shouldn't that like actually affect it? Shouldn't it just be a thought or some kind of theological construct? Shouldn't it like actually affect us if he's actually like the God who made all the world, and if he actually came to be a human, like, shouldn't that affect everything about our lives? Like, and so I've been kind of thinking, and I've kind of been seeing that it's in John 15 that Jesus kind of tells us, like, hey, do you want to live that eternal kind of life? Here's how. And it's through this simple example of vine and branches. Like, a very simple and ordinary thing that if maybe you're at home right now, if you look out the window, you'll probably see at least a tree, you know, something green. And it makes sense that a branch cannot survive apart from Shrek. You gotta say, oh my gosh.
I said Shrek.
You might see something green. You might see Shrek. Oh,
Gonna
my
wipe
gosh.
the table down again.
Alright, I'm gonna spit everywhere. Continuing.
You probably won't see Shrek, but you will see probably a tree.
Let's hope not.
But
Or
yeah,
flowers.
hopefully you don't
She
see.
did it.
If you see Shrek, you need to go
That's a
see a
problem.
doctor or something.
Or you're in Hollywood and someone's wearing a Shrek costume. Because I've
Or
seen
your
a Darth
Fiona.
Vader
Or
costume
your
there.
Fiona.
Oh my goodness. All right. So vine and branches, going back to that. Jesus tells us, hey, if you want to live the eternal kind of life, here's this little metaphor. Vine and branches. And we know that if a branch disconnects from a vine, it's going to die.
Withers, yeah.
At any point. Any point. Like, a branch cannot, like, I don't know, like, it can disconnect and then kind of come back. Like, at any point, if it falls, you know, it's like that kind of thing. And now it's different for us, right? Because Jesus gives us this metaphor, and the beautiful part is, even if it doesn't matter what we've done or where we've been or what mistakes we've made in our life. And Leo, we're kind of talking about that. Like, the Bible, like last week, check out the podcast with Pastor Mike. At
Shout
any
out
point,
Pastor Mike.
yes, at any point, like, you can connect with God. Like, the Bible is full of really messy people that honestly are probably more messy than you, if we're gonna be honest.
Yeah.
But going back to that though, is that Jesus tells us, hey, eternal kind of life, here's how. Connect with me, abide in me. And he uses that word, which we've talked about in the Greek, is really just stay with me. Just stay with me. You know, like if someone was staying at a house for a certain amount of time, it's just stay with me. And what's interesting is I've been thinking about what does that really mean? Because okay, so now Jesus gave us the metaphor, but then what does that really mean in my everyday life? And something that I'm finding and also influenced by someone named John Mark Comer, if you're not familiar with his stuff, really good, is it is in the ordinary where we practice abiding in Jesus. Abiding in Jesus is a practice. It's looking at his teachings and looking at his example and seeking to bring that into our life with his help, in relationship with him. And it's a process over time. But in that, if we stick to that process through the seasons, we will experience real life, which he talks about as bearing fruit. It's just a natural thing. In other words, it's in the ordinary that we change. We find, and Jesus gives us the eternal kind of life through practicing in the ordinary. So it's not just for a happier life, but it's actually something that Jesus taught us. He gave us a very ordinary metaphor to tell us that, hey, if you want to experience real life, it's not going to be in the dramatic, one-time moment. God can do stuff like that. But so many more times he works like a farmer. Vine and branch, over time, takes time. You just thought of something funny in your head. I know you did. She's like always like thinking of like little stuff, and it's hard like to look at her because it's like she just thought of something really funny and she's not sharing it. But
Sorry.
you're so good. Does anybody have any comments on that, or does that make sense? Or
I mean, like, no Christian walk is ever going to be easy. No walk, like, once you give your life to Christ and find him, it's not going to be easy. They think that, like, oh, when I give my life to God, it's going to be easy, like, smooth sailing, I'm going to get everything, all these blessings. Like, of course you're going to get blessings, but it's always going to come with difficulties, all those temptations and, like, all those things that you want to put behind in order to be that person that God wants you to be, And I had a friend that told me she was very scared to get baptized. And she got baptized before me, and so I was very young. I got baptized when I was 10, I believe. And she was saying, I'm just excited to get baptized, like my life is going to be so much better.
Sure.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I was very young. I didn't know what I was saying.
Sure.
But as we became older, after I got baptized, like, we found out that the walk is definitely difficult, because once you give your life to Christ and find him, you're going to get so many more temptations than you ever received in your life, because, the devil works hard, but...
So, Lauren,
yeah.
Could you... So, if I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if I was someone... Could you break that down a little bit? With what do you mean by... What do you mean, like, kind of with baptism? And then what do you mean with, like temptations and the devil? Mm-hmm. Like, what does that look like for your personal life? I'm just wondering.
For my personal life.
Or, like, what does that mean to you?
I'm just saying, like, once you go through this thing, we're just going to call it a thing. Let's just say it's not going to get easier. Like, let me relate it to, like, school, okay? So let's say you get straight A's, and then you become very happy. You're like, oh, okay, my life through college is going to be super easy. But through that process, in order to keep those straight A's, you have to keep grinding. You have to keep, like, working harder. It gets harder and harder and harder, to maintain that, that process, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm losing myself right now.
You're good.
That's a good analogy.
Good analogy? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying...
Consistency.
Consistency. Yeah. So what I'm saying is any relationship, either way, it's not going to be easy. Like, dating relationship, a walk with Christ, anything. Like, a relationship with your parents, you have to maintain. It's a process. You have to practice. What's that thing you said?
It's not about... So it's about training, not just trying.
Yes,
Yeah.
training versus
Not
trying.
about one time trying to run a marathon. It's about training a little bit every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I just thought.
No, I appreciate what I hear you saying
I don't
is.
know, I'm thinking.
No, you're good. What I'm hearing you say is that that what you mean by that is that whenever we say, "Hey, I want to give my life to Jesus. I want to live in relationship with Him. I want to experience His life." That things don't always get easier. That doesn't mean that automatically it's going to get easier, but that more and more we have to practice in relationship with Him. Right? We have to practice His words in our daily life. And there are a lot of, that word temptations, and there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things that get in the way of that. And we have to rely on Him in order to keep walking. And again, not in order to earn His love. He already loves us. But in order just to accept His life, like in order to grow into the people that we want to become, it's going to take effort. It's not just going to happen. Is that kind of...
Yeah, I see Jesus as like a best friend in a way that they keep reaching out to you to hang out with them, but you get distracted. And like Jesus, a relationship is something you have to maintain. Just like how Sadie and I maintain our relationship as friends. We communicate with each other day to day, and then we build a relationship. It's the same thing with Jesus. You got to remain in contact, tell Him your struggles, and He'll help you. It's just like a best friend kind of thing. You saying I'm your best friend? I guess.
Oh my goodness, so good. Leo, so now we can have like the topic out there, right? So again, if we see our everyday lives as meaningless, it'll just lead to frustration, right? Because like life doesn't come to us in the spectacular, it comes to us in the ordinary, right? And our ordinary choices shape the course of our life. It shapes who we become. So it's actually the ordinary that matters so much. So where do you kind of see that in your life, or where do you experience that for you?
I feel like me personally, I kind of, for me, since right now we're kind of in isolation, I'm usually at my house. So a lot of the time that I have like interaction with other people is whenever I go to like the supermarket, to like El Rancho, or to Target.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of where I feel like I should implement those moments of positivity with other people. Is to have those little moments that, I'm sure other people are also going through the same thing, where the only time they go out is whenever they go out, to the supermarket. So what you do to someone, or how you react to them, or how you talk to them, can really impact their day, because that could be the only time they talk to somebody that day. And like for me personally, sometimes I do get kind of anxious.
Sure.
Like whenever I go out, like I don't want to talk to anyone. I just put on my little mask. I just get my
Makes
little
Makes
cart.
it so much easier not to talk to people.
Oh, yeah. Pop in those AirPods, just listen to music and just go on with your day.
Let's go.
Oh, man. Yeah, and I feel like in those moments, I feel like I should kind of, like, use that opportunity to share positive moments with other people. In whatever way that can be, is like, I don't know, maybe helping an old lady take her groceries to her car, or like, I don't know, like if someone drops something, pick it up for them, or just like, I don't know, or just like talk to someone, be like, hey, like, how's your day going? I mean, I feel like people might think I'm creepy, but it could be a positive impact.
Yeah, finding ways
lives.
to be kind.
Yeah.
In a time of like, again, like a lot of uncertainty and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Sadia, where does this hit your life?
Why do you do this? Leo.
It's your turn now.
Sadia.
Little head whip.
I mean, as Ian said earlier, I wasn't really in the meeting on Monday to like plan out the podcast. I actually didn't know what this conversation was going to be about until like Lauren and I had a mini conversation, like overviewing everything. But the whole time I'm sitting here listening to you guys, I definitely thought this conversation was going to go a different way. Because, it's about small things. I thought it was going to be more like progress and like leading up to the big thing or something. And then you started talking about like taking off the makeup, and there's natural beauty and, or there's beauty in
natural essence.
Yes, thank you.
Tweet.
don't be a retweeter, okay?
Don't retweet.
Conflicting messages.
Shout out to podcast number 2.
Podcast number 2.
Bro, I'm just shouting out. Like,
I know. I don't know what's going on today.
Check out
Me neither,
podcast
y'all.
2. Oh, this camera.
Link in the bio.
Checkcast.
Somewhere.
Checkcast.
No.
Sorry.
Anyways.
I just caught what you did. Okay, anyways. Sorry.
I was like, okay. Well, with the whole natural essence or natural beauty, whatever you said, you say it a lot better than I do. When you were talking about that, in my head, it kind of went to, like, I kept getting this imagery of, like, a skeleton, which is so, like, it's of a person's body. Like, you know, when you were talking about taking off makeup, it's literally removing everything else to where it's just your bare bones, basically. As you are a skeleton until you are dressed, basically.
Sure.
And what we're showing on Instagram is our skin, is our top layer of what we want people to see, not our deep heart, like not our organs, not our bones, you know, those kind of things. If you're in anatomy, you're welcome. I'm helping you out with these quizzes or something. I don't know. Never taken anatomy in my life. I don't know what toes are. But like that to me was very different. It's like it's the same thing. That's a part of the small thing in order to get to the dressing. So what we started off with in this conversation was a lot different than how I was gonna how I thought it was going to go, which for me, and then it ended a different way as well. But to me, in the ending, it's, for me specifically, my life has been all about big changes. My life, going from having parents to being with my aunt and uncle to not having parents to being kicked out to, like, it's always been big events, like, and mostly negative events. But it made me who I am to where it, like, impacted my life in a different way. But this year specifically has gone by so fast that, like, I have had very, very, like, great minuscule blessings that have turned into bigger blessings. So what I'm saying is that, like, God has given me, Lauren has given me Ian and Leo. Those are very, like, that just seems normal because, you know, you make friends, you talk to people, that just seems like a normal thing, right? But it turned into something bigger because once we ended up, like, getting to know each other, me and Lauren, we definitely thought, like, we had this conversation when we first started becoming, like, really close friends. I thought she hated me and she thought I hated her, or I thought she was too cool to, like, for me to hang out with, and she thought I was too cool for her to hang out with. Like, we had the same opinion of each other, of, like, assumption of each other towards each other. And it was very, like, that's why we're together. But like, that led into a bigger blessing that spiraled and overflowed into, like, different blessings. But what I'm trying to get out basically is that, like, in my life there's been so many big changes in my life, like the big, people always focus on those big effects of life, the big blessings, the big things, like the very height of the roller coaster, basically. When they don't think about the other little tiny, you know, ups and downs. But let me go back to my story. This year, it's been very, like, of course I've had big things and big changes happen, but there was one time that I specifically sat down and the same event had happened to me that has happened to me before, and I took it and I handled it very differently than I did. And so you may not see the changes that are happening in this everyday ordinary life, but once you get to that big thing and once you handle the big thing, if it's a negative way, like a negative thing that impacts you, you handle it differently and you see the way that God has been changing your life through the ordinary, through the everyday. Even with that, like, man, I lost it.
Well, I want to ask you a question in that.
Yeah.
Like, what made you handle it differently?
That's it, is I don't know. That's the thing, is I grew from this point, like point A to point B, the first event being almost the same event. Like, let's say that, like, this thing has happened to me before where I lost a job, and like, I've had a lot of things happen at the same time, and the same thing. And at point A, I was very anxious. I was very, like, I would take my anger out on people that I loved. I would do certain things that basically a child would do. And not, like, saying that all people are like that, but that's how I handled it at that time. And then I grew, and then that same thing had happened, and I handled it in a more mature, I handled it as if it happened to me before, but also I handled it through different eyes because of time, of the ordinary built up progress that God was making in my life through the days leading up to point B.
So the situation was the same, but you weren't the same.
I wasn't the same.
And it's funny because you don't notice the growth happening when you're in those ordinary moments.
You just, like one day you wake up and you're like, I'm different.
Yeah, I'm different. It's in, sorry.
No, go for it.
It's in those moments that something happens whenever you notice that those tiny little ordinary moments changed you.
Yeah, and we were talking about it in Bible study because we have a friend that's like going to college and she's like in this waiting period of whatever, and I was speaking to her because I've been there before. Like, we've been there before. It's in those waiting periods, that waiting room, like, it's in that time that God shapes you to be the person that you're supposed to be. It's the small things that you do every day, the small choices that you make every day, leading up to the person that God's having you be. And so, like, with that, it's just, and I'm sorry, I'm going to reverse this back. I had a conversation with Peter. So a little background about me is a year and a half ago or whatever, I had lost my job and, like, my home, basically. And Peter and his wife were so kind to, like, take me in. But he pointed out something because I had gotten a job as basically a salesperson, and I was supposed to move my way up to manager. But he pointed something out to me, and it blew my mind. Well, it didn't blow my mind at the time. Don't tell him I said this. But he told me that as millennials, as Gen Zers, like, and I hate, like, talking about that because, like, what's the point? But we are in a place, in a time where we want things so fast. Like we were talking about earlier, so we want to be manager right then and there. We want to have a bunch of money right then and there, but we don't want to take the steps. And we don't want to have to, like, grind in order to get to that place. And it's just like with our character and where we want in Christianity. Like, if, like, a couple weeks ago, I was reevaluating my life. I do it every, like, 2 to 3 weeks. And I write down a list of, like, who am I? And what can I do better? Like, who do I want to be? And who do I think God wants me to be? Because of conversations that I've had and all of this stuff, like, it helps a lot. Yeah. But it's more like reevaluating my life into seeing, like, who do I truly want to be? Because after a couple weeks, I get into this, like, funk of, like, I just don't like myself. I don't like the character that I have, and I'm not a bad person, but I know that I can be better, and I know I was made for better. But in that, you have to take the steps in order to be a better person. You can't just, like, wake up one day and say, oh, I've changed. You know, like, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, sadly, just like if you have bad skin, it doesn't happen overnight when it clears up. I'm not
I felt called out too, low key.
I was like that in high school. Like, it didn't happen overnight. You really have to know yourself. You have to know your God. And you have to take the steps in order to be better, in order to cleanse yourself of that, like, if you have acne, to cleanse your face, to do those certain things, to chip, like Mike said, to chip away the sin, to let God chip away the sin from your everyday life, basically. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to take the steps in order to become a better you. And a better, like, and it's the same thing with relationships with God. Lauren is so right on that one, because relationships take hard work. Like, you choose to love somebody. If you're in a marriage, like, you choose to love that person every single day of your life. You know, like, me and Lauren live together. Lauren, you're my best friend, but sometimes you annoy me. And it's the same thing. It's vice versa. And I know I annoy you sometimes too. You don't gotta say it out loud. It's her face that tells me.
Your words, not mine. Yeah, just kidding, love you.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is that we do have to work on that, and I choose every day to love you. You choose every day to love me, and it's the same with you guys. Like, we choose to have these friendships, because if not, what are we doing to, like, work towards a better friendship? It's just, we're acquaintances. Like, I just know your name. I don't know anything else about you. And it's the same with yourself, and it's the same with your God. It's the same with God. You have to get to know them in order to build a better relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. Like, you guys took a year to figure out who you guys were. Like, me and Ian have been friends for, almost 2 years? I've known you. Like, I knew him for probably, 3 years before we actually became friends.
Yeah.
Like, I knew of you. And it's crazy how God works. But, you have to take the leap into friendship with God. And then you have to, or take the leap into acquaintanceship.
Yeah.
So at least start off with saying hi. Like, you're at a supermarket, say hi. Smile at the person. Smile at God. Ask him what's up every once in a while. Be like, yo, God, hope you're doing okay. I'm doing okay, I guess. And then the conversation starts there. Like, you start somewhere small.
Yeah.
To get to a better relationship, to get to a better you, to get to a better place in your life. And it doesn't get easy. It's not easy. Like, people have this misconception of Christianity that once you accept God into your life, it's easy. Nothing's easy. Especially in this world, nothing is easy.
Yeah.
You have to work for a better thing. Like, if you want a better job and you want to get your education, you have to work really hard for things that you want, especially in this life.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people think that relationships are easier than that.
Or they should be.
Or they should be.
Yeah.
No. It's still something that you choose to do. It's something that you want, and you have to really want it for it to be what you want.
It's so good.
In the same life, you know? And sorry, I'm preaching.
No,
you're fine.
So
I kind of had something to add to that too.
Yeah,
is those relationships, building that relationship with God as well, is I'm the type of person that if I see other people and I see that they're reading their devotionals every morning, or they're always attending church on time, and they just have such a daily relationship with God, and I see that I don't have that, and that kind of discourages me from even trying to have that relationship with God, because I see them and then I'm like, dang, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be that person who wakes up early, with their cup of coffee, just reading Psalms, just sitting by their windowsill, all Tumblr
sipping the Psalms.
Sipping the Psalms.
Catch me in the Psalms.
And it's that really discourages me from pursuing that.
Yeah.
And it's taking those little baby steps, making it consistent, where even if you just pray for 5 minutes, it can start off 5 minutes, and then the next day you can do 10 minutes, 30,
or even 6 minutes. You can go up one at a time.
A millisecond.
Whatever you're comfortable with, and whatever you you feel like you need to do. Not everybody starts off doing a whole devotion. Low-key, I can't even read a devotional. My reading comprehension is just really bad. And so, for me, it was more me starting off with, a song in the morning, because I'm a very musical person. God just talks to me in different ways than it talks to normal people. Know how God talks to you and how you perceive, how you intake it.
Yeah.
And then know yourself, know what you're comfortable with, and start somewhere. The whole thing about, the discouragement, that's me. And it's so sad. I was literally talking to GJ about this last night. I was like, dude, I'm fat. And I'm not fat. I'm not fat at all. I'm really not. But I look at these girls on Instagram, and this is, a whole different conversation, that, body dysmorphia and whatever. But, you look at these people, and you're like, dang, these people probably look like they just drank a lot of water one night and woke up like this. I wish I was like this. But no, it took them 3 years to get like that.
They don't show that, because all you see is where they're at, there with their body and their perfection.
Exactly.
But they had to go through so much to get there. And
exactly.
Yeah.
It's but you have to start somewhere. You can start at 100 pounds or 300 pounds. You have to start somewhere and then you have to work with what you are at that time, work with what you have.
Yeah.
And that was in my life. I went through this whole phase of like, I just gotta work with what I have, because I've been given less than like most people have been given, but you work with the cards that you're dealt with, and you play the game, and you start with what you're comfortable with, and you continue, and you get better at what you're playing,
And you have to learn that that's enough.
Yes.
Like, there's what you have, that's enough. If you can't live someone else's life, you can't take someone else's stuff and make it yours. Like, what you have is enough. And that's like something that you have. That's like a mindset, especially me. I'm preaching to myself. Is like, with what I have to stick with that, and I have to build off of that. Because the more I just sit stagnant, like, oh, this is all that I have, this is just my life, you just keep repeating that same process.
That's where that frustration in ordinary life, that's what we're gonna 360 back to that frustration and disdain for everyday life, because it's ordinary. You're sitting in that stagnant like water, and you feel gross, and you feel like you could be doing more, but you don't know where to start. Yeah, you're in hot dog water.
Oh
no. My gosh. It's gross, and you're just chilling there, and instead of getting a new bowl of water, you're just reheating your hot dogs in the same water. Like, no, get some new water, man. Get some new water. Take that water, make better hot dogs.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, Laura.
Like, you said the word... Hello? Sorry. You said the word stagnant, and that kind of reminds me of, like, everything going on, the pandemic. Like, I feel like the virus has kind of constricted humans to be forced into this very systematic routine, because if you don't stay in routine, things are going to get out of hand. And you were saying about how you go to the supermarket even just for like 15 minutes, and you said that whenever you talk to someone, that could be like the first interaction they've had that day. It could be good, it could be negative, and I'm just saying, like, we're talking about little things and how those little things can really impact someone. And I don't know about you guys, but I see people as movies, as films. Like, each person is a different plot. Each person is a different story. And I kind of see them as, like, a celebrity in their own movie, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I was thinking, there's this thing that people say, like, oh, I'm going to head out to Walmart. And like, oh, okay, let me just get changed. And it take, like, 3 hours to get ready. And then you're just like, why are you wearing that? Like, we're just going to Walmart. And then that person responds with, you never know who you're going to meet. But I would like to change that question to, you never know who you're going to impact. So, I feel that the way we carry ourselves, the way we speak, the way we act around others, they might not be Christian, they might not even have a religion, they're just there, and they're just experiencing life as we all are. And so I just feel like the way that we act, like the way we show God's character, can really impact that person. Like you said, like helping a grandma with her buggy. Ugh, I don't use that word.
With her buggies.
I don't use that word. The grocery cart, okay? Like, like holding the door for someone if they're struggling, or, I've heard so many stories, especially like on Instagram. I see these little short clips of little skits that they have. There could be this one person that's having, like, their life is just going in a crazy spiral. They're considering, like, I don't know, suicide. They're having depression thoughts. They're, trouble at home. And then once they go to the store, a public place, this one person just compliments them, like, hey, like, you look really beautiful today. And, like, I'm sorry to bother you, but that's just how I saw you. And then, they kind of sit with that compliment, and they kind of, all I'm trying to say is that it impacts them. Yeah. And so, speaking of, like, a small impact, there's this memory verse in the Bible. I don't know where it's found, but I've heard it before. It's so beautiful. It's like, if your faith is as small as a mustard seed, it can move mountains. But also, if your actions, like, are as small as a mustard seed, it can still move mountains. Like, no matter how small the act, no matter, like, even if it's a smile, like, what they say, like, on Pinterest, a smile can go a mile. But, I'm just saying, like, well,
that's like live, laugh, love.
I know, laugh, eat, pray, love. Anyway, I'm just saying that the smallest things can have the largest impacts on, like, people. Like, inviting someone to church, and, like, you don't know how they're going to respond to it, but it could have a great impact on them, so. Yeah.
And even if they can't come, like, the small suggestion and, like, the small, like, what's the English word?
Gesture?
Yes, thank you.
And Ian, you do this thing, like, every week. Like, when you see that my personality or, like, something in my actions have changed, you take the time and the effort to actually reach out that week to check on me, and that small gesture like carries me through the week. And like I really appreciate that. Just like the small, like even though you're struggling with your own thing and everything that else is going on in your life, you still have the time and like the love for and like support for your friends to actually check up when, you know, like you're struggling yourself. Like we're all struggling, but that small act of kindness like truly impacts a person's life, just to show that you care. And I really see God's character in that, you know. Like Jesus, he was going through a very terrible time in his life where he had to deal with all that stress, like the burdens of all the people, you know, but he still took the time to actually like preach and like take care of those that really needed it, even though he was struggling in his own life. And I just really see the little things making that big impact.
And I want to go off on that too.
Sorry, one more thing.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
And also the coronavirus, you know, like how something small as a germ, like a microscopic germ, can just make this big impact. Anyway, that's all I want to say. Continue. Sorry.
You just had to say that.
I had to. I thought about it just girl. Sorry.
I think that's what she was thinking about when she was laughing while you were talking. She was probably like,
oh my god.
But like kind of like what she was saying about you checking up on her. You also, I think I told you, this was when we were filming with Pastor Mike, I think it was 2 weeks ago, whenever you called me before I got there and you were like, hey Leo, how can I pray for you? And I was like, and you prayed for me, and after that I was like, I just want to let you know that I appreciate it a lot, because not a lot of people will just randomly call you and be like, what do you need prayer for? You know, and even like my closest friends, sometimes they don't check up on me like that either. So just the fact that you're like, those little moments, like I haven't told you, like while you were praying, I started tearing up because like I didn't really have people like that, or well, I do have some people like that, but in that moment that just really impacted me. And that same feeling can go towards other people as well. Is like,
for sure,
that can start like a ripple effect. Like maybe Lauren will start like doing the same thing where she would start noticing people, how they feel more, and kind of, you know, talk to them about it.
With that's the thing, like that's interesting that you mentioned the ripple, because that didn't start with me. That started because someone else created a space for me. That started out because there's people, spaces.
Plug. Shout out spaces.
There's people in my life that create those spaces for me.
Yeah.
And that empowers me to create you know, if I can, and I do it imperfectly and it's not always consistent, but I appreciate you guys so much, you know. And wow, because you know, you forget about these things, you know, life moves on. And what I'm hearing though is that the ordinary, if we discount it, will leave us living in frustration. So if we feel like it's only the big things in life that really matter, what society tells us is big, what culture tells us is really big, we will live our lives in frustration. But if we, in relationship with Jesus, step into the ordinary, and the ordinary can be, like we've talked about, with ourselves. So taking those little steps to get closer to Jesus, or also taking, you know, like, we don't know where people are listening to or where they're at. Maybe just the little step is to grow, develop your character, and become the type of person you want to be. Maybe the step is to, like you said, achieve something in your life, achieve your education, achieve, you know, a goal. And like Leo, you were talking about, like, it's not just, like, it can feel so overwhelming, but we take one step at a time. So in our own life, the ordinary is how we harness that power. The ordinary is how we step into that. And then the ordinary is also where some of the biggest impact on others happens. Mm-hmm. Like, we can talk about changing. Oh, that reminds me. There's this concept of dream small. You know, everyone thinks like dream big, dream big, dream big, dream big, dream big. Mm-hmm. But I remember hearing a talk where this speaker was essentially challenging their audience to, like, think small. You know, so many times when we think big, we end up not doing anything. But when we think small and just say, what is it that I can do today? What is it that I can do tomorrow? You know, and we do that. That starts creating the momentum. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that momentum stacks up until it gets to the moment of crisis. We all go through crisis, right? That cliche. You're either in a crisis, you will be in a crisis, you've been in a crisis. It's always, right? It's always either coming or it's there. But when it comes, it will not just, a lot of times we think crisis builds character. Crisis reveals character.
Mm.
And when it's revealed, you will find, like you found, Sadie, in your life, I'm not the same person. But it didn't start there. It didn't start when the crisis happened again. It started in the little decisions that you've been making in your life. Mm-hmm. That's so amazing. Anybody want to add anything before we close? Or should I just say goodbye?
Well, I mean, as closing, I kind of want to say more of like...
Go for it.
Just to summarize everything, just step into that ordinary so that God can change for the big things. That's literally just it. That's the summarization of all of what we have been talking about. Is step into that ordinary, step into the small, take the small steps so that you can get to the big places. Anyways, so thank you guys so much for conversating with us today and being here and listening or watching and seeing our beautiful faces. If you decide, never mind. So
I need a haircut.
Yikes. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening and watching Spaces.